Подожди, это...
Вот смотри, надо микрофон у тебя включен сейчас. Вот.
Где? Вот это, да?
Да, сейчас выключи, например. Ну, вы... Звук не надо.
Ну, я сейчас услышу ведущего хотя бы.
Это не от этого зависит, папа. Это ты сейчас себя
Себя?
транслируешь.
Добрый день.
Добрый день.
Hello.
Hello. Да, Савенко Владимир. Так. Добрый день, добрый день.
Добрий день. Доброго дня.
Так.
Где у меня учитель?
Вот.
Ну, как что-то у меня, оно есть, нет. Кузьмин есть, а я нет. Ну. Нет, я вижу, а меня не видят. И что я не включила?
Внизу включите видео. Слева. Вторая кнопочка. Классненько просто. Там, где рядом со звуком. Поняли? Ирочка, Артеньева, ты тоже? Ответь. Оксана Ноздрова, привет.
Да, добрый день, рада приветствовать всех.
Доброго дня, шановні учасники. Рівно 15:00 по Україні, 14:00 по Польщі. Ми розпочинаємо нашу лекцію в рамках стажування. Перше, хочу від імені Центру українсько-європейського наукового співробітництва щиро подякувати за те, що прийняли участь, зацікавились нашим проєктом. Декілька організаційних моментів. Сьогодні, як директор, спілкувався з секретаріатом. Надходять останні тези, останні квитанції. Ми вже наприкінці тижня почнемо верстати збірники. І приблизно десь 6 вересня нам Куявський університет в особі Joanna Skiba обіцяє направити усі сертифікати. Тобто, як ми і писали в інформаційних повідомленнях, що 11 вересня ви отримаєте, буде розсилка, все йде за графіком, тобто приблизно це виходить 3-й тиждень вересня, чекайте ваші сертифікати, відповідно вже можете готуватися до подання документів на доцента або професора, оскільки прекрасно розумію, що абсолютна більшість приймає участь у подібному проєкті саме з цією метою. Сьогоднішній наш захід є факультативним, він ведеться запис з секретаріатом Центру українсько-європейського наукового співробітництва. Відповідно, хто сьогодні не приймає участь, зможе на YouTube-каналі Центру українсько-європейського наукового співробітництва подивитися сьогоднішній захід у запису. Будемо працювати протягом 1 години. Я зараз спілкуюсь на українській мові. З нами присутня на зв'язку Joanna Skiba. Це начальник міжнародного відділу, кандидат філологічних наук, відомий дослідник у Польщі дистанційної освіти та освіти дорослих. Відповідно, вона розуміє українську, оскільки вона свого часу в університеті вивчала російську мову. Проте, на жаль, спілкуватися українською або російською вона не може, але нас прекрасно розуміє. Відповідно, сьогодні у нас заявлена лекція про соціальні медіа, поняття соціальних медіа та їхня роль саме в навчальному процесі в сучасних умовах пандемії. До речі, коли ми анонсували це стажування, Центр, якщо ви слідкуєте за його діяльність, подібні проекти проводить досить часто. 1 раз на квартал ми проводимо проекти. Але саме протягом цього стажування, наприкінці серпня, я думаю, кожен з вас бачив лист або наказ, точно не пам'ятаю, виконуючого обов'язки міністра Сергія Шкарлета про те, що можливе дистанційне стажування офіційно дозволено. Тобто вже вчені секретарі не повинні вимагати від осіб, які претендують на отримання чинного звання доцента або професора, довідки про перетин кордону. Оскільки раніше у нас були такі подібні запити від окремих закладів вищої освіти. З вашого дозволу, я передаю слово головному спікеру сьогоднішнього заходу, Joanna Skiba. Please speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be able to meet you again and connect. I know this is a very special moment for all university scholars around the world because we are in a global situation and we have decided to introduce a new topic, the topic on social media in didactics under the COVID-19, the situation which we are facing. I think we are the best example of the new reality because we are as scholars, as university teachers, are not meeting at conferences right now, which is a big pity, because this is what we also enjoy, and this is also a profit from our everyday jobs. Hoping we will be able to meet up soon, hoping this will be this academic, new academic year. In my today's lecture, I would like to talk about this new situation. This will be the introduction. Next, I'm going to talk about the benefits and the negative sides that we face using social media in didactics. I'm going to give you quite a bit of practical information on the topic. And also I'm going to sum up with two aspects. First, it's the critical acceptance, how we can accept the new situation and if we can do that at all. And what are the next steps that we may take in the new situation. If there are any questions or you would like to follow, because we cannot really be interactive right now because only one person is allowed to speak at a time. You can send the questions to me via email or you can read the material that I have prepared and then you can have your remarks on that. So most educational institutions around the world canceled the in-person instruction and moved to remote learning. And the teaching in March 2020 has, you can say, globally stopped. This was due to the spread of COVID-19. The whole formal education system will not reopen in some countries. I know in Poland the situation is quite mixed. Our rectors in Poland have decided or are deciding now that it will be a hybrid system, which will be a mix. So some lectures will be distance learning and some lectures will be taking place at universities. But this is going to be a completely new situation. This may be called a disruption in learning, which was caused by COVID-19. And some important insights about its possible impact can be gained from findings on existing studies on COVID-19 data. And I strongly think we are in a situation like we are going to study whether social media is and has been used so far and in what aspect and to what extent, and also how we can improve this medium of communication now when we are facing the pandemic situation. The adoption of distance learning is the key to ensure the continuity of education. It follows the closure, the physical closure of schools, and the students are very likely to experience a learning loss during the lockdown. There are several arguments and there is evidence that the quarantined students tend to spend less time learning compared to when schools are open. And I think it's hard not to agree. And secondly, many students are confined to homes and they feel very stressed, anxious, which may have a very negative effect on their ability to concentrate on any kind of university work or schoolwork. It is interesting to put the learning loss suffered by students into a broader perspective. Such loss will translate into a reduction of available human capital. The negative effects will be seen on productivity, on innovation and employment, including the future earnings. Some French economists have already studied that the COVID-19 may reduce the amount of earnings in France by 700 million euro in 1 year. These values are really big and they also have some influence, a lot of influence on educational levels. We have to decide whether we are ready to accept the change or not. This is like what I can show as an example, whether we are mobile teachers using our mobile phones, which I do quite a lot right now, or if we stick to the old methods like we use only books. I think those times are unfortunately gone and we have to accept it. Well, I try to be positive about this, although I'm not very happy about being only a distant teacher. But what can I say? There is a phrase, if plan A doesn't work, the alphabet has 25 more letters. So you can be more innovative and you can try to be creative with what we have. So when it comes to social media and education, many academic teachers now view those platforms as distractions and having only negative influence. But in today's situation, the social media plays a very meaningful role in higher education, and it happens every day. When it is used the right way, it may enhance the students' learning journey and make it much easier for students and educators to connect. Research has shown how beneficial social media can be in terms of learning. Through these various platforms, teachers can connect with students and put together social media into lessons, making them more interesting and engaging. Social sites are a great tool when it comes to interacting with students. Since it's something they are familiar with, they use those sites frequently throughout their daily life. And I think we should base our experience on that. Sometimes our students, or most often our students, may be more experienced than we really are. What are the effective ways and what are the effective methods? Well, we have to try to put the two words together, to use the technology and put it together with academic work. For example, we may ask students to create a blog about the subject we are discussing and market this blog as a product over a month or two. The students may be asked to conduct market research about the, let's say, customer segmentation. And in general, in university settings, social media can be incredibly useful when it comes to reaching out and engaging with students, which is an obvious fact right now. But this is also a less formal way of communication. It shows student a more personal side, and it may improve the teacher-student relationship. We use, first of all, the first medium we use is Facebook, and this is an obvious fact. This is the role of professors and educators who should encourage students to better communicate with one another for group projects. And this is not only Facebook, it's also WhatsApp, which is very popular in Poland. I myself connect quite a lot with fellow teachers over the Messenger, and we seek help from each other. We send information via messengers. The start of this was like 10 years ago in Poland, and the social media has come a long way since then, making this even easier for the students to get strength and ability. So, as I said, we use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and this is used to spread awareness about a particular news information which is related to university. We can broadcast important information, share anecdotes or videos about our institutions. Right now, what we face at our university, at Kujawska Szkoła Wyższa, Kujawian University in Włocławek, is the large scope of promotion of our university. So our promotion department has used social media to promote our university as an academic center, because we are seen as a private institution. So we can, and we have to promote in today's world reality. So this is to use very integrative form of social media, not only for teaching, but also for promotion of the institution. There are many clear benefits of social media. First, it's communication and collaboration. The biggest advantage of social media is quicker communication. A student can connect with anyone at any point in time. They can use platforms over their smartphones, the tablets, computers, and the learners can exchange information, make phone calls, make video calls, they may call on Messenger. If the student is stuck with some pieces of homework, they can always communicate with friends and tutors. They don't need to wait and they don't have to meet physically. Social media promote learning by offering support with sharing of documents, and this may be done by Google Drive and Google Docs, which is not strictly social media, but this also helps and supports our work. The benefit of social media is also the ease with which we find concrete information online. Various websites and social media provide plenty of information, and it can be helpful to students. There are the news, information on international events and other websites, international libraries, and they may find answers to any type of question. The educational benefits of social networking are also those that help students prepare for important lessons and learn concepts of different issues. Social media websites will contain the latest data on various school subjects, and the students may have the opportunity to have a look into this, what is new and the latest. We are now witnessing the era of social media learning, whether we like it or not. Another benefit is the improved literacy, communication, and reading skills. It is usually observed that students are bored of reading and writing, especially now, and the internet and social media provide plenty of online information. And students are more inclined to read, especially if the pieces of information have some graphics, eye-catching animations. Online messages, comments, news articles provide endless list of information to be read, and students are motivated to devote their time and put some extra effort towards the learning. In social aspects, there are many areas which are encouraged and which may be seen as benefiting from social media education. It encourages, what I think, it encourages collaboration. The platforms are social networking sites. They encourage the sharing of content. For a student, they have made collaboration easier. One doesn't have to meet physically to work together. They may spread the word using hashtags or join a Facebook group, and there are many, hundreds, thousands, or millions of them. It also benefits the learning process. The students can access vast information which may not be available in the school library. They can interact with friends in other localities and globally. They share ideas to help sharpen the way of thinking. This exposure is important if it's like we want to stress the out-of-the-box thinking. It also helps to familiarize with technology, which we cannot, as I said, we cannot avoid. We cannot ignore the rate at which technology is causing a significant paradigm shift in our lives. More and more students, millennials, are venturing into technological fields. The social media and their use and understanding of its operation plays a very big role with the increasing focus on technology. Are there any bad features and any negatives? Of course, there are many of them. It has quite a lot of potential of distraction, as we know from our own experience, even we as scholars. When we are writing a paper, without noticing, we finally end up with our phone in our hands and we want to follow what's new on Facebook, what's new on Instagram. And I do that myself a lot. It can be a big distraction but we have to use, let's say, time limitations, and we have to be more self-disciplined, which is, I know, not easy. Social media is also blamed for poor writing among students. So students use abbreviated forms. They use short sentences or emojis, so those graphic representations, which doesn't encourage in any way any proper writing forms. It also promotes the over-reliance on internet, which means that we only Google answers, that we only use the search engines, and we don't depend on ourselves. I mean, the students don't depend when they want to come up with appropriate solutions. So cheating in exams is quite common because they may use the social media to help them find the right answers. Another aspect is cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is the situation which is maybe described as a verbal attack. The social media platforms have opened another avenue for bullies. There are no restrictions, or almost no restrictions in that area. Many children are bullied by other students there, which some countries introduce new laws and regulations, but also this is quite a constant process and it is still ongoing, and I don't think there are any global measures that have been taken so far. Another issue which I see as negative is the FOMO, which is FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you must have heard of that. And we saw on social media, we are able to communicate the information at the speed of light and share this information with unlimited numbers of people. So it's easy to stay informed and to inform others on our lives. And this is part of a lifestyle. The more social media in our lives means that we are losing access to reality, and we sometimes become obsessed, or even we have this fear of losing information on current events. This is the feeling that we miss something very important if we disconnect, which is, of course, it's not true, but this is the fear which is especially observed among young people, and it shows that the social media has a very significant role in their lives. About practical aspects, about the methods, regulations, and options for teachers, I would like to stress some aspects of those areas. The social media now are offering students the world of learning, which is completely new. The very way they are designed fosters community building and cooperation between users. In education, it is getting bigger and bigger, and it has a lot of influence on the lifelong learning, the importance of a positive educational experience. It also shapes the attitude towards learning further in life and equipping students with very practical skills. We know that people in groups learn not only faster, but more in depth. They acquire knowledge, they are learning how to learn. If you want to use social media together with your students, you should remember about some important aspects, such as privacy, content, security, and the policies of communication. As I said before, it was about cyberbullying. There are no clear regulations so far. So this is up to the teacher to decide if he or she wants to use a private account or a business account. I think it's obvious we should use our business account. So maybe create another account for Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to communicate with students. So if we finally decide to use a private account, we agree that the students have access to all the photos and information. So this is not the best solution. A more secure solution is this business account, which will allow us to concentrate only on matters related to university. Thanks to that, we can send students important information, links to interesting educational material, post class photographs, homeworks, or class projects, or group projects without worrying about privacy. We can create our group on Facebook and invite only the students from our groups, our classes. So the group members can share their interest and content, like exchanging files, links to interesting sites, and messages, photos, and videos. As soon as the new content is posted, the members receive information. What is important to take care of and what we should avoid? The teacher has a very powerful tool, and the tool is very popular with students. We have to be aware of this. It doesn't mean that the teacher will use it in the same way. So before we start using the social media in a more active way, we should discuss it with the management, with other teachers perhaps, and also start with small steps. Before we feel confident, we can use Facebook or Twitter, as they are like notice boards. So we give information about notifications to students. We have to agree with the students on the rules. The students need to know that what we are posting and what is not accepted. And we should always react when students break the rules. In some cases, also parents should be informed about this social media interaction, but it depends on Ukrainian regulations. In Poland, it's only for those students who are under 18. We need to, as teachers, as scholars, we need to stay professional and only focus on activities on related topics with education. And remember about the privacy settings. We have to protect confidential information. We have to remember that anything we post on the web can be copied from there. So once we put it there, it remains there. We should work with the students to develop ideas for using different services. Also, we should agree with the students on communication rules, and we clearly should indicate we do not agree to the publication of offensive or ridiculous content. We should never confuse private or professional life. This is one of the very important issues. We should not let students have the constant contact. We don't have to be available all day and night, as we say, 24 hours a day. There have been cases reported recently in Poland that the situation has been taking place. That the students send messages in the middle of the night, and they do require a reply, which is absurd and should not be happening. So we should limit the time we are available. We should not overdo the social media. So information overload is always wrong. We should control what we share with the students and parents. We have to be clear and precise, take care of the language. We should be careful about spelling, grammar, and style rules. We should write on the topic and also give our messages a title. We should be using cultural language, and when we quote someone else's word, we should mention the author. We should have our profile or our blog in order. So we need to check the information sources, delete information which we don't use, and behave in the same way as we behave in our everyday life. We have to be very careful with the jokes. We should not insult anybody. We should not troll, spam, or not steal anyone else's intellectual property. We also should not spread false information, the so-called fake news, or we should not leave the accounts without any control, as they may just be rubbish on the web. How to be secure in the social media world, how to protect identity. We have to be careful about the account and have a strong password. The stronger the password, it is harder to crack it. We should familiarize ourselves about the data protection news on the specific social media and also about all the restrictions. We have to think carefully before we post anything on our profiles. We should never post any private information. We also need to verify the identity of people who invite us to join the groups before it is too late sometimes. We should not click on any suspicious links. We should check the privacy settings on the profile from time to time. And also, in the network. We should try to put our name into Google search engines and try to find out what is written about us, because this is somehow a lesson we may learn that we have not been aware of. There is also another issue which is called the digital footprints. We leave them on the internet, and this is our search history. This is how much time we spend on pages, what type of messages we are willing to click. And this is very often used by advertisers, by mobile network operators or phone manufacturers, because we leave the footprint. This is also the footprint we leave, and it is collected on social networks. And we have to be also aware of this. As I mentioned, the practical aspect, I can say that there are several options to use. There are several ways of using social media. First, it's Facebook, and I don't need to explain to anybody. Then it's Instagram. Snapchat, which has been quite popular in the past years, but maybe it has been substituted by Instagram relations now, but it's also has been very popular among young people. YouTube, where you put videos, Pinterest, it's more for graphics, Google Plus, which is also in the place where we publish messages, SlideShare for multimedia presentations, Messenger, which is quite obvious, like Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn for professional contacts, and WordPress. WordPress is the one that I use myself. It's for blogging. It's a free program, which is very good to use. Skype, it's like a messenger for video calls. So these are the platforms I have been having on my mind. We should concentrate on the didactic consequences for students. What is the benefit for students using social media? As we have been discussing different options. They help to develop mindfulness and critical thinking. They teach communication. Social media connects people all over the world. Teenagers encounter various attitudes online, values, behaviors, and very often very different from what they know from clear surroundings. So naturally, young people learn to communicate clearly, and they communicate their needs, values, and benefits. They also support the development of social and civic competences. Thanks to social media, young people not only expand the circle of friends, but also acquire competences which will allow them to find them in the future modern civil society. They teach, thanks to the presence on the internet, how to communicate in different situations, how to express their own opinions, beliefs, how to accept the opinions of others, and how to cooperate. So these are the areas of benefits, of social benefits. This is active participation. That's what I would like to stress here. Some ideas on how to use Facebook at university. As I also mentioned this before, we can set up a fan page for the class. We can have a group working together on Facebook where we post information. When we post any content related to life at university. As a profile administrator, we should be able to edit any comments or information. So it's good to have this administration option. We may inform our students about absences, our schedule, the class changes, or about homework. And we can also post materials like videos. So we can create quite a lot of content using Facebook. With Instagram, it's also where we need to concentrate on the aspect of infographics. So we may put exercises, we may put language courses, language activities, or games or questions. We can also post information on homework and educational aspects. So it's quite easy to be very creative. Let's say to put a fictional character on the Instagram and have some history on that. I think it's quite a lot of many options for, especially for the language teachers. If we reduce the language barrier, then it's easier for the students to get more interactive with this. We may also become famous, which is somehow the effect which we may not want. But if we are very successful with our social media, then we may, as a teacher, as a scholar, we may become famous either in our city or even globally if we want it. I think it's up to many options. We have to be very critical on social media as well. So it's not only the positive aspects, but we have to be receiving this information critically. The access to knowledge is universal with the use of social media, especially now. At the same time, selecting information has become very difficult because we are like swimming in the ocean of information. So it's very difficult for young people to have a critical assessment of that. The speed at which the news travels through the media of social networks is very difficult for anyone, even for young people, but also especially for adults. We have to somehow filter the information. And it's not always easy for us as professionals, but there are professional centers in many countries which follow and try to reduce the fake news, which is also flooding over social media. To be able to use it successfully, we need to be able to answer these questions. How does the fact differ from opinion? What is fake news and what are the reasons behind it? Why is it so important to be able to distinguish between true and false information? And what are the good practices, how we can verify information? And the final question is, are we ready to accept this type of technology in the classroom? I know it's not easy, but if we answer no, then maybe we should not force ourselves, although we are limited to distance learning right now in most of the cases. But this is an open question. I will not answer it. Finally, what is next? What are we facing and how to solve many problems in the present situation? The effect of pandemic on education poses two key challenges for educational policymakers. First, the measures should be taken to ensure that more students will be able to make up for the learning loss they have experienced during the lockdown. This can be done quickly and effectively in order to avoid such crisis results in permanent education and economic inequality. Second, given there is the possibility that educational institutions may not be able to operate fully during this new academic year, some alternative methods of teaching and learning should be put in place, and one of these may be social media. Although the blended learning system is an interesting option, as I mentioned at the beginning, the hybrid teaching, it is important to know that it requires a change in both the quality and quantity of the teaching capacity. It requires the revision of curriculum. It is may be very difficult for younger children who may not adapt to this model, and also the structure of modern schools may not be appropriate if we want to maintain the physical distancing. So these are the questions, and one of the final aspects is the financial support, especially for scholars and students who are not able to afford modern tools of technology. The following elements should be part of a successful strategy for the online teaching and social media teaching. They guarantee access to the internet, availability of computers or smartphones or tablets, the access to the internet at a decent speed, adoption of virtual learning environments, which can give learners access to very many educational resources, rethinking the role of broadcasting education, which will be one integrated national system, which has been attempted at the beginning of pandemic in Poland, but has failed completely. Improvement of the ability of learning technologies for students with special needs, which is also a very big issue to consider for the policymakers. We are also always talking about the support to the students. What about the support to scholars, the support to us? Not all of the teachers, not all of the scholars have learned how to adapt to this situation, and they do not know the proper ways to communicate only online. So it is crucial to improve the teachers' digital competences across all ages, as well as to ensure that they are all well trained in the pedagogical approaches which are important in online learning or blended learning. Also, the parents should be supported with the information available to them, and maybe meetings or maybe online information, but also maybe printed information. And at the same time, we should not forget about the support to students as far as emotional aspects are concerned. As was argued before, many students are likely to suffer from stress following COVID-19. They may have had very little opportunities to be outside. Some of them might have seen family members becoming ill. This is a crisis situation, and it has a negative effect, especially on the socio-emotional skills of students. In the light of this, it would be advisable to increase the number of school mental health specialists. There is also the risk that COVID-19 may increase the number of early school leavers, especially students from unprivileged backgrounds may find it hard to go back to school after a long absence from it. I don't know the situation in Ukraine with the younger students, or let's say pupils from secondary schools. In Poland on September the 1st, and this is coming next Tuesday, all primary schools and secondary schools open, so there will be no distant education. Only university level education will be conducted on that using that method. But the question is whether it is safe, whether we are ready for that, and nobody knows the answers. So this is a very, very difficult situation. And once the COVID-19 ends and all schools and universities reopen, the government should continue investing in e-learning. They will have to be very careful to consider that the lessons learned from the crisis they have required a very sudden, unexpected switch. You remember that happening in March, that we had to face it from day one, and we were not prepared for that. That we will need to analyze what was wrong and what was right, what did not work and what did work well for us. And we have to have this critical approach when we come back to schools as teachers and as scholars, and that the challenge will be over. And finally, as my last thought on the topic is that the role of social media is like, if you don't accept it and if you don't give it 5 minutes, then you are not going to give it another 5 years. So if you're not somehow committed to it right now, that this is an available source of help, which I do is, then maybe better to forget it right now and maybe to concentrate on some other options. But I won't be totally critical. I think there are many advantage points of using social media in our present situation. Thank you very much.
Спасибо.
Joanna, thank you very much for Interesting reflections. Можливо, у когось є питання, будь ласка, Joanna готова відповісти на них. Якщо питання відсутні, то я анонсую нашу наступну зустріч. Якщо ви відкриєте програму на 2 вересня, там така абстрактна тема зазначена – академічне письмо у Польщі. Але вже я був присутній на подібній лекції Joanny, там дуже цікава інформація про те, які вимоги висуваються до вчених у Польщі щодо написання наукових статей, написання дисертацій, написання тез, як оцінюються журнали у Польщі. Так само дуже цікава інформація, яке ставлення уряду відносно наукометричних баз Scopus, Web of Science, а також індекс Коперникус. І дуже цікавий аналіз робить Joanna, який, на мою думку, варто запозичити нашому Міністерству освіти і науки України. Це формування так званого списку топ-100 журналів, які отримують пунктуацію різну в залежності від якості журналів і, відповідно, отримують дуже велике фінансування. У нас, на жаль, журнали не мають жодного державного фінансування, фінансуються за рахунок авторів, тому, відповідно, і така якість. Тому, на мою думку, дуже цікава лекція буде наступного тижня, рівно о 15:00, так само в середу. Але, знову ж таки, акцентуємо вашу увагу, що участь у подібних заходах, які залишилися ще 9 вересня, є добровільною. Якщо більше немає питань, всім щиро дякую. Я уважно дивився кількість. Максимально у нас було сьогодні присутньо 95 осіб. Щиро дякуємо, що цікавитесь діяльністю Центру українсько-європейського співробітництва. Хочу анонсувати, що ми зараз розпочали активну співпрацю з Національним агентством якості вищої освіти. Відповідно, вже в листопаді у нас будуть заплановані безкоштовні цікаві семінари з питань академічної доброчесності, які можна буде відвідати як офлайн, вони будуть відбуватися в місті Одеса та Києві, і так само в Zoom. Підкреслюю, вони будуть зовсім безкоштовні на платформі нашого Центру українсько-європейського співробітництва. Всім дякую за увагу. Сподіваюсь, що більшість з вас ми зустрінемо з Joannою у наступну середу о 3 годині. До побачення.
До побачення. Дякую.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, bye bye, thank you,
До
bye.
побачення.
Давай.